Welcome back to Major Intonio's presentation of With the British Army in the Holy Land, by H. O. Locke. Chapter 5, Gaza.
Gaza. What pictures this name conjures up in our imagination? From childhood, the city has been familiar to us for its dramatic associations with Samson. It was here that he removed the city gates and carried them to the summit of Ali Muntar, to the top of an hill that is before Hebron. And it was here that he took hold of the two middle pillars, and bowing himself with all his might, destroyed the temple of Dagon with the thousands of Philistines that were his tormentors. The whole history of Gaza is steeped in blood. It is the outpost of Africa, the gate of Asia. Throughout the ages, its strategic importance has been immense. Scarcely an invading army has passed here without fighting a battle. It figured in the wars of the Eastern invaders, was totally destroyed by Alexander the Great, was the scene of one of Napoleon's battles, and, during our campaign, saw 6 months of trench warfare and no less than 3 distinct and sanguinary engagements. In the course of its history, Gaza is said to have been taken and destroyed in war between 40 and 50 times. No city in the world has been destroyed more often. Happy, indeed, is the city that has no history. Prior to this war, Gaza was a town of some 40,000 inhabitants, mostly Muslims, to whom the city is sacred. It owed its importance in modern times to being the junction of the caravan routes from Egypt to Syria and from Arabia to the Mediterranean. The town itself stands back some couple of miles from the sea, from which it is separated by sand dunes. It is surrounded by gardens and plantations. Most of these are bordered by thick cactus hedges, which played a prominent part in the days of trench warfare. The surrounding country is by no means level, but consists of rolling arable land with low ridges and some hills. The most prominent feature is the hill Ali Muntar, a commanding height southeast of the town. When we first approached it, the hill was clad with trees and surrounded by a tomb, but 6 months' persistent bombardment soon removed the trees and tomb and altered the conformation of the hill. There are other ridges lying about the town, which were afterwards incorporated in the defensive schemes of the Turks and of ourselves. The geographical feature of principal military importance in this neighbourhood is the Wadi Guza. This wadi is a watercourse which, in times of rain, carries off the water from the hills between Beersheba and the Dead Sea. It runs approximately from southeast to northwest, at right angles to the coastline, and passes Gaza at a distance of about 4 miles from the southwestern or Egyptian side of the town. During the greater part of the year, this watercourse is dry, though the sides are steep, and wheeled traffic can only cross at properly constructed crossings. On either side of this wadi, distant a mile or so from its bed, are ridges which run approximately parallel to the wadi. That on the right bank is known as Mansoura Ridge, that on the left bank as In Seirat. The latter is a relatively high ridge and affords cover for troops beyond. On the other side of this ridge, protected by it, and distant some 9 or 10 miles from Gaza, is a small village with a good supply of water. This village is known as Deir el-Bella, or more frequently, merely as Bella. It formed our advanced base during the later operations against Gaza. We have seen that, at the end of February 1917, General Doble's force had reached El Arish, while portions of it had crossed the border at Rafah and his cavalry had occupied Khan Yunis. The Turks had withdrawn to Gaza, where they now took up a position. They had one force at Gaza and another in the neighbourhood of Beersheba, with other troops between. In March, it was decided to attack the enemy at Gaza. The British force was concentrated at Rafah, whence it marched up secretly by night. On the night of the 25th March, it moved forward from Bella against the first objective, the In Seirat Ridge. This was secured without serious opposition. There was a dense fog on the morning of the 26th, and as the troops were moving through standing crops, finding the way was none too easy. However, the Wadi Guza was crossed, and the high ground at Mansoura Ridge was secured. From there, an attack was delivered across the open against Ali Muntar and Gaza. The main attack was made by the 53rd Division, plus 1 brigade of the 54th, while the 52nd Division were in reserve. Our troops captured and established themselves on Ali Muntar, and also on the hill beyond, known as Australia Hill. From these points, they looked down upon and dominated the town of Gaza. Meanwhile, the cavalry had been ordered to go round by the right and to cut off the enemy when he should retreat. The cavalry not only got round, but succeeded in entering the town itself, where they captured some of the Turkish staff. The Turks believed that the game was up and were now preparing to surrender. It was the opinion of many who took part in the battle that, had we held on for a short time longer, we should have captured the town and the whole of this force, and that we should have then been in a position to meet and to defeat the enemy reinforcements, since the 52nd Division in reserve had not yet been brought into action. However, Turkish reinforcements were now reported to be coming up from the direction of Beersheba and to be threatening our right flank. Accordingly, a withdrawal was ordered, and our troops fell back on the Mansoura Ridge, the New Zealanders coming right through the town of Gaza itself. That night, orders were given for an immediate retirement, and our forces recrossed the Wadi Guza. The bulk of the force retired to Bela, while outposts held the Inseirat Ridge. After a 2 days' battle, wherein complete success had been almost within our grasp, we had but little to show, save casualties. From the summit of Inseirat Ridge, a commanding view is obtained over the whole country from Gaza to Beersheba. From this point of vantage, the Turks could be seen, throughout the first fortnight in April, busily digging themselves in and wiring their positions. We, on our side, were no less assiduous in preparations for another battle. Patrols were sent out to reconnoitre the country, and working parties went out into no man's land to construct ramparts and make all preparations for getting guns across the Wadi Guza. The 74th Division were brought up to Bela. A few of the newly invented tanks arrived from England and aroused great expectations. The day of the Second Battle of Gaza arrived. On the 16th April, the force moved out from Bela and crossed the Wadi Guza by night. On this occasion, the first objective was Mansoura Ridge, which was captured without much difficulty. The second and principal objective was the strong line of Turkish positions to the south and southeast of Gaza and fronting the Gaza-Beersheba road. The troops detailed for the attack were the 52nd, the 53rd and the 54th Divisions, the 54th to move forward from Mansoura, the 52nd on their left, and the 53rd close to the sea. It was contemplated that most of our difficulties would be obviated by a long artillery preparation and by the newly arrived tanks, which had acquired a high reputation in France. Accordingly, the enemy positions were shelled for 2 hours, and then the infantry advanced, preceded by these tanks. But, alas, the tanks were few in number. Some were soon put out of action, or caught fire, and the hopes that they had raised were disappointed. The infantry advanced over some 3,000 yards of perfectly open plain, until they reached the enemy's uncut wire. Here they were mown down by the enemy's machine guns. That night, those that were able to do so crept back under cover of darkness to Mansoura Ridge. The dead lay where they fell, a gruesome spectacle, for over 6 months, until buried by our own parties after the Third Battle of Gaza. Those that returned were collected and reorganized at Mansoura Ridge, and at once commenced to dig in at this position. This was the night of the 19th April. Next morning, the Turks came pouring out of their positions to gloat over their success. By this time we had done little more than scratch the surface. Had the Turks closed to deliver a determined counterattack, they might have made matters distinctly uncomfortable. As it was, they came out merely as spectators. Our guns opened upon them, and they withdrew. After this, our digging proceeded apace, and we soon had a satisfactory position entrenched from Mansoura to the sea. There is a saying in the East that the British always come back, meaning that reverses only make them more determined to try again and to succeed. Thus did the British come back into the Sudan and into the Transvaal. Thus was the surrender of Kut wiped out by the capture of Baghdad, and so were our losses at Gaza in this spring, avenged by our victory on these same battlefields in the following autumn. For the time being, however, both sides settled down to the routine life of modern trench warfare. Now followed a complete reorganization of our army in Egypt. On the 28th June 1917, the post of Commander-in-Chief of the Egyptian Expeditionary Force was taken over by General Sir Edmund Allenby, GCMG, KCB. The organization into an eastern force under a subordinate commander, which had been instituted in the summer of 1916, was abolished, and the force was organized in corps. The strength of the Egyptian Expeditionary Force was augmented, much artillery being added, besides 3 divisions of infantry. The 10th, Irish, and the 60th, London, divisions were brought across from Salonika. The 75th Division was organized in the country and consisted of 4 battalions of Indian troops, taken from the Suez Canal zone defences, and 9 battalions of West of England territorials that had been in the east since the beginning of the war, and had, for the most part, been garrisoning India. When this reorganization was complete, this army was constituted as follows: the 20th Corps, comprising the 10th, Irish, the 53rd, Welsh, the 60th, London, and the 74th, Dismounted Yeomanry, divisions. The 21st Corps, comprising the 52nd, Scottish Lowland, the 54th, East Anglian, and the 75th, Wessex and Indian divisions. The Desert Mounted Corps, comprising the Australian Mounted Division, the Anzac Mounted Division, and the Yeomanry Division. General Allenby had, as his Chief of Staff, Major General L.J. Bowles, CB, DSO. In addition to the above troops, there was, on this front, a composite brigade, consisting of French and Italians, familiarly known as the Mixed Vermouth Brigade. Other regiments were represented, such as Indian Imperial troops, and battalions of the British West India Regiment, while representative units of the Egyptian army did duty upon the lines of communication. Although each division was associated with some particular portion of Great Britain, from which it took its name, the association was not exclusive. Thus, the 52nd Lowland Division had at least 1 Highland battalion. The 53rd Welsh had more battalions from England than from Wales, and the 54th East Anglian contained 1 battalion from London and 1 from the south of England. It will be best, therefore, if in our future pages we refer to divisions only by number. An interesting feature about General Allenby's army was that, from this time forward, the greater portion consisted of territorials.
This concludes today's reading of With the British Army in the Holy Land, by H.O. Locke. Join us also tomorrow for the subsequent part. Subscribe to Major Intonio's channel. Thank you for listening, and so long.